I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here with my partner, Mr. Nick Hodge, who's also an investor and happens to be the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is the 232nd episode of our weekly therapy session that we like to call Investing in Bizarro World. We're going to talk markets, we're going to talk rates, we're going to talk gold. We're going to talk about Mr. Nick Hodge's tech bubble implosion prophecy that seems to be maybe playing itself out. We'll talk lithium. We're going to get into a lot of things. Trump got indicted again. That seems to be a weekly thing. But before we get to all of that, Mr. Hodge, how goes you, sir?
A prophecy. I'm interested to talk about it. It goes well. We do well. How are you?
I am well. It is hot outside. Allergies continue to rage here near Austin, Texas. But no complaints. Enjoying the summertime. Everyone's healthy. We just celebrated my beautiful wife's birthday. That was an absolute blast. Thankful for another year. She still wants to keep me around. So no, life is good. I can't complain.
Good.
Let's get into it. The Nasdaq just had its worst day of 2023.
Oh, man.
Drum roll. The Dow is down 300 points today on August the 17th, Thursday. When we record this podcast, it's fallen for a third straight day. Rates are surging. That obviously is having an effect on the gold price, which has now dipped below the 1900 level. That is a lot to get to. I'll let you start with the tech bubble implosion prophecy that you had been calling for some time, and we're even short tech, if I'm not mistaken, at one point before covering that short, if I recall correctly. How are you feeling about the overall indices right now?
Yeah, I've covered a couple of tech shorts successfully over the past year and have been saying that, overall broader markets were still in a larger bear trend. And despite what we've seen of late in the stock market, that, we weren't in a new bull market. Certainly, you're seeing a continuation of that now. I don't know if it's, the implosion of the Nasdaq or whatever, but it's definitely back to, I think I told you last week, maybe bad news would be bad news again. And it seems like that's what you're getting a bit of. Earnings were a bit suppressed. Rates continue to go up, which is very interesting. And you mentioned that. I mean, you've got a 2-year yield that's up around 5%. And that's what I was writing about this week, because people talk about boring summer and yeah, it's been slow and volumes have been down. And certainly on the individual company level, the news flow has been scant, but big things are going on. Like the two-year yield is knocking on 5%, and at the same time, the market is only pricing in like a 10 or 15% chance of a rate hike in September. So one of those things is wrong, and I'm interested to see how it shakes out. So the inflation has been cooling, but it's still sort of sticky high above what the Fed wants. So and then Jerome has said that he's, content to keep hiking. So, 5% 2-year yield is really, really high. And at the same time, the 10-year yield is going up as well. It's at like the highest it's been since 2007. And we know what happened after that. So you've got sort of two battles going on, right? It's this 2-year yield versus the Fed, right? Who is right? Is the market right, pricing in a pause, or is the 2-year yield going to force the Fed's hand? And then you've got a 10-year yield that's going up, and you've got to wonder if like the economic growth can sustain that, because that typically has to do more with like the long-term strength of the economy, and I would argue that no. So on this side, on the Fed and the rate side, you might get a pause in September, but I think you get another rate hike before the end of the year, and then it's what I've been saying all along. It's just taken longer to play out, right? The Fed is going to hike you right into a recession and the things breaking in the market. And then you'll get those things breaking and a cut in rates sometime next year, which will ultimately be good for gold, right? And so that's why I think the 10-year on this side, which I was just speaking about, is probably getting a little bit toppy. And you've got people calling for bond crashes and the 10-year yield to continue to rise. And you've got gold, as you said, going below 1900. But that's the time I think that a contrarian bet on gold makes the most sense. I think that you stay in that range. I've been telling you that down around 1900 is buy time for gold. And, we're a couple of weeks away from the end of the month. You have to hold 1875. But it feels scary with gold with an 1800 handle, but it's still technically bullish. And I don't think you get that, breaking of gold bull trend to the downside yet. So hopefully some of that made sense.
All of that made sense. I agree with every part of that. You mentioned contrarians, and you mentioned shorts, and you mentioned something breaking. Michael Burry of The Big Short fame, right? One of my favorite movies of all time. And if any of you have not watched that movie, I highly recommend it. Based on a true story. Michael Burry famously, through his hedge fund back then, 2008, I believe, made a big bet against the mortgage market and was right, and subsequently, personally pocketed somewhere north of 100 million. And I think his firm made something like 700 million after being wrong for a couple of years, right? The time from when he made the bet to the time to when the bet paid off, it was months and years on end, to the point where he had to basically take people's funds hostage. He locked it up and said, I'm not giving you your money back. Everybody thought he was crazy. Ultimately, he was proven right. He just made a $1.6 billion bet against the stock market. 93% of his portfolio is short right now on the overall indices. That's not lightweight money for anyone. I don't care how many billions your fund has under management. And so I thought it was interesting that he made this bet a couple of months ago, right? We just got the filing this past week, but the filing is dated. And so this is a bet that's been put on that he's been on the wrong side of for a couple of months. And I'm curious to see, like most contrarians, your contrarians are usually early. And I count myself in there, not to put myself in the same boat with Michael Burry, but some of my biggest wins, let's talk Patriot. I was down 50% on Patriot before it turned around. That's where the 16-cent financing came in, right? We had conversations with the company at the time about keeping the lights on. And at the time, they were exploring a gold property in Idaho. They had some decent hits. They had a little smoke. They didn't have any fire. Gold market was dead. We had a conversation about some of the lithium assets in the portfolio, and so did several other people. And to Blair's credit, he made the perfect pivot into the lithium space at the perfect time and happened to be sitting on a gold mine that happens to be what will be one day a big lithium mine. And so I say all that to say that contrarians are typically going to be early. If he's half right on this bet, it's going to be fireworks when whatever breaks. And I do believe something breaks. These rates aren't sustainable, Nick. They just aren't. Whether it's, the bond market, the housing market, they can't continue to rise at this pace without something seriously imploding. So,
well, yeah, it was, like I said, it wasn't a new bull market, right? Something was ultimately going to break. You've seen a lot of capitulation, right? People who were bearish the past couple of weeks and months going back to the bullish side and saying that, we might get Goldilocks or we are going to have this soft landing. But the fundamentals have really, not improved and have eroded in some respects. And so you've had a market that's gone up and we've talked about it, right? First it was, 0-date exploration, call option buying. And then it was AI was gonna, save the world. And then, the market was going up, but it wasn't really fundamental changes, right? It was narratives that was, pushing it up. And so companies had to report reality. You just said Q2 earnings, and some of these tech companies, going back to your question about, the Nasdaq and tech companies, specifically, Microsoft saying, look, AI is great, but one, it's very expensive. You have to invest in it. And two, it's not going to pay off potentially as fast as, people have thought or said this year, right? And so I kind of put a damper on that euphoria around AI, right? And that combined with, other things has led to what you've seen in the market over the past couple of weeks, with really a sell down throughout the entire month of August so far.
I tell you, the other thing that is really curious and interesting to me, which I think, again, speaks to the fact that something's got to give here with rates in the U.S. China just, reported some CPI numbers that were very, very bearish. And then, they had an unexpected rate cut, right? That took the market by surprise, and that led to dollar strength, and that led to the dollar going, near the 104 level after, for a bit, it was softening up closer to 100 than 105. And so when you have two of the world's biggest economies going in opposite directions as it relates to rates and policy, something has to give. And I will say this with China, think whatever you want to think about its politics and its human rights abuses and some of the issues that the country has. And you can think whatever you want to think about the U.S. and some of the issues that we have, clearly. But they are nimble, and they are really, really good at being nimble as it relates to incentivizing lenders, banks, and their corporate partners to get the economy going. They are much more nimble than we are here. And I think the rate cut is a precursor to what we're going to see from China here in the next several months on the policy side of things. Be very, very watchful of China, folks, because I think that's going to be the canary in the coal mine for a lot of what ends up happening here in the U.S. And again, they do have an advantage over us when it comes to being nimble with their banking system. They can literally just go ahead, start printing tomorrow, cut rates as they just did, and tell everybody that you're going to lend and you're going to provide incentives to make people buy cars, buy homes, buy food, and do all the other things that clearly are not happening organically right now in China.
Yeah, it's been one of the big curveballs of the global market really this year is that, people, including myself, and I've written about this, thought that the China opening was going to be much stronger, right? We even bought China in foundational profits, the monthly letter, earlier in the year, and have already sold it once I figured out that the reopening wasn't going to be as strong as once thought. And yeah, they're cutting rates, and that plays into not an entire global slowdown, because there's always pockets of growth, and I've been writing about that as well, other parts of Asia and South America. But China specifically, has been entirely lackluster. That's why in commodity markets as well. You've got copper back down, closer to $3.50, as I was saying, than $4. And if they're a leading indicator, which remains to be seen, then yeah, that would follow on with, something breaking in the U.S. and then potential rate cuts here in 2024, which is, partially what I just laid out there earlier in the podcast.
A lot going on for a boring summer, Mr. Hodge. Let's touch a bit on. I don't want to do a Patriot take this week because it's more of the same. The shorts are still playing with the stock. It's not going to matter at the end. But more bullish news from the region, right? Ford and several partners just chose Quebec for a $900 million battery plant. Where do you think the material is going to come from, people? I don't know how much clearer it can be for y'all, but you have Patriot Battery Metals with its partner, Albemarle, which just happens to be the biggest chemical company on the planet. They're in an MOU and in talks to go ahead and partner on building a plant. Guess who's going to take all of the material and turn it into the stuff that's going to feed this battery plant? I mean, it's so simple to me and so like writing on the wall that it's even the construction date. Like they're going to start constructing this plant here within the next year or two. It's supposed to be operational in the first half of 2026. Canada's federal government is providing a conditional loan of $322 million Canadian. And so this is going to cement Quebec is to what I called it a year and a half ago. The Saudi, or this is going to be the Saudi Arabia of oil, Canada version with lithium, right? And I think when you look at the region, there's going to be several players that benefit, but the bigger players with scale are going to be the first to reap those benefits. And I think, this bodes well for permitting as it relates to Patriot. It bodes really well for supply contracts. It bodes well for having some price negotiation leverage moving forward when they get to that point. And so all bullish news other than the share price still stuck in the mud, which it'll be stuck in the mud until it's not. I have some ideas and thoughts about, how they might be able to force the market's hand. We'll see if Blair actually pushes those buttons. I suspect management is not happy about how the stock is getting bounced around at these levels, given how well they've executed. I know 5 rigs are turning. I know they want another 5. I know that deposit and those deposits get bigger by the day. Happy shareholder, the share price will do what it's going to do when it does it. So anyhow, I said I wasn't going to give you a Patriot take. I did anyway.
Well, I can relate it just more broadly to lithium because I was doing some looking around there recently, and it looks like the entire sector is, bottoming sort of at the same place it bottomed in May. So you talk about Patriot and specifically in Quebec, but, even more broadly, I was looking at the Albemarle chart, and I was looking at the Allchem chart, and, I was looking at the ETF chart, and, it's down to where it was in May. And you'll remember at that time, I was saying on this podcast, free advice, right? So take it for what it's worth, but that I was buying Albemarle in my personal account. And, I've since sold that. It was just like a short-term flip because I thought that lithium was oversold. But what I'm saying is that we're back to those levels, right? So I think that lithium is back to oversold, and I think it will likely hold these levels that it was at back in May. And so taking that as a buying opportunity. I mean, I'm obviously a Patriot shareholder, but I have my own, separate lithium plays. And I had a limit order set for one that I've had set for a couple of weeks now, and I've written about to my weekly letter, and that happened to fill the past couple of days here. So these are levels I'm comfortable adding to my lithium position, and have done so.
I don't think it's a coincidence that this battery factory is going to be IRA compliant. The Inflation Reduction Act, we've talked about how much that act and that piece of legislation, regardless of what you think of the Biden administration or whoever's running the country, it's done wonders for incentivizing critical metals related advances in North America. This will absolutely receive some of those tax credits and benefits that come with the Inflation Reduction Act. And so kudos on that front. And no, things are looking up. Things look good. I agree with your assessment on lithium bottoming at current levels. So we'll see how that plays out here over the next several weeks. Another week, another Trump indictment, but this one seems a little bit more serious, and you can tell by the tone of his responses. RICO acts are not anything to play with. And the amount of people, I think it's 18 people in all, and they're teasing superseding indictments. For those of you that have never been indicted or haven't had friends that have been indicted or don't know what a superseding indictment means, it means there's more coming, right? This is the initial indictment. There's likely more coming. It's really interesting to me that Rudy Giuliani went public right away, put his apartment up for sale for something like $6.7 million, and started complaining to the media about Donald Trump never paying any of his legal fees. It's not going to take much for these people that supposedly were, brothers in arms, to all of a sudden start flipping on each other. And it's going to be, look, I got my popcorn. I wish reciprocity and law and order on everyone and accountability. I have my popcorn, and it should be interesting. The statements from Mr. Trump have been pretty out there. Some dog whistling and then the usual stuff that goes on. But this one might stick. He didn't like this one.
Prisoner's Dilemma.
Sure.
You can Google that and read about it. But whether it's Giuliani or the property manager at Mar-a-Lago, these folks have incentive to reveal what they know. And so it's going to be interesting. And as I said, it's also interesting that he remains far and away the leader to win the Republican primary, right? And says that he won't cede, and we'll see if he's got a debate. Those will be coming up soon, and I'm always a fan of those. But it's all very interesting. And the other thing that's interesting, and I picked this up from Neil Howe. We always talk about the fourth turning, but he was giving a talk this week that I tuned into on a drive into work, and was saying that. Well, first, let me tell you what the book says, and then I'll tell you what he was saying. The book is saying that, some new political leader, party, or ideation arises during a fourth turning that the nation, coalesces around, essentially. Think like FDR's extended time, sure, right, to get through the Great Depression. Well, nothing like that has seemingly happened yet in this fourth turning. I mean, I don't see some new candidate popping up. I don't see fresh new ideas. I don't see the country coalescing around some new party or candidate. And so I've been trying to figure that out. And he was saying this week that hasn't materialized yet, that right now people aren't voting positively. Like, they're not voting for ideas. They're just voting against other things, right? They're voting, they're not voting for Biden because they like Biden. They're voting for Biden because they fear what another Trump, term would look like, for example. And in some cases, people are voting for Trump, though his people are, on the whole, more loyal. But in some cases, people aren't voting for Trump. They're voting, against Democrat or liberal ideation. And so You can't have that sort of catharsis or that, that coalescing around a new idea or person until the people are receptive to democracy and hopeful that, America can prosper and that, this person or this party can deliver it. And I'm not seeing that out there right now, right? It's still on the downslope. It's still the distrust of institution on the rise and not healing yet. And he was also talking about how young people, I don't know if it was a majority or just an increasing proportion of, but, increasingly distrust democracy and are increasingly trusting of socialism, even though they've never lived under it, right? So definitely still some things to resolve politically as a country, all the way from embracing democracy and having new ideas to literally getting to the bottom of multiple indictments of the former president and current Republican frontrunners. So, like you said, it's your popcorn.
I saw a meme earlier this week that had a mid-20s young lady and a picture of her dating profile, and she said, "I am a communist." And then under salary requirements for her potential partner, she said minimum 100,000. And it just spoke to where we are, Nick, as a citizenry, and obviously it's not everybody, but oh God, look,
she can get herself a UPS driver. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, they're hot in the streets right now, Nick. UPS drivers are hot in the streets. 170K minimum, baby. Yeah, no, interesting times. I think it's going to continue to get volatile. There's already been several Trump loyalists that have been arrested for threatening to kill jurors, kill judges. They've doxed a lot of the jurors. Doxing meaning they've put their names and addresses out on websites, like on the dark web. So it's just a lot of nastiness going on. I'm telling you, people, do not throw your life away for these people. It is not worth it. Biden isn't worth it. Trump isn't worth it. Kennedy isn't worth it. It's just not worth it, folks. It's just, I know I try to preach unity every week. It's sad to see fellow citizens that just really believe this guy that are like, oh, we have to fix this. We can't let them get away with it. Let's go kill the judge. Let's go kill the jurors.
And I think the FBI shot somebody in was Utah or New Mexico in the past couple of weeks, or same thing, with investigating him for threats online.
Yeah. No, there's better things to do with your time and energy, everybody. Be active, be vocal, do all of that, but leave the other extracurricular stuff alone. It's been a quiet news week here the past couple of weeks. It's been a quiet news month, frankly. Bravo Mining finally had some news. I know we had talked a couple of weeks ago about waiting on news. The news was received in typical August fashion with a yawn, right? But the news basically explained that where they've only drilled the Luanga deposit, right, which is already substantial, down to 150 meters, they're now drilling down past 300 meters and finding similar grades, similar widths, and additionally, significant nickel values. And so we have some geophysical surveys and some more data that they're crunching together that is coincidentally going to align with conference season in September, the kickoff of conference season, right, with the Beaver Creek Precious Metal Summit, which both Mr. Hodge and myself will be at. If you're out there, please say hello. We'd love to chat. But they're lining up that piece of news for September. I have to believe the news is going to be positive, but the news they just put out was extremely positive. It's essentially telling you that there's likely twice as much as what was already at the surface, down to 150 meters. And there also may be a high-grade feeder nickel deposit that is going to be very much in demand if that's the case and if they're able to vector in to that. So a lot to like there. Company remains one of my top picks. We've done really well with it. I think, it's headed to $1 billion market cap. And then depending on what kind of nickel grades and widths and what kind of ore body they're able to discover, we'll see if it's off to the races after that.
Yeah, they seem to have a tiger by the tail. Looking forward to the next set of data. I think they'll be at Beaver Creek, so looking forward to catching up with them and you and other folks there as well.
Excellent. We'll also be at the New Orleans Investment Conference. Once again, Nick will be presenting. Nick will be hosting a mining panel, I believe. Nick and I will be presenting, doing Bizarro World live from New Orleans for you all. Would love to see everybody that can make it out. It's a really well put together conference. The food is amazing. The staff is amazing. Brian London and his group put on a top-notch conference. Lots of great speakers, lots of great information, practical information, entertaining practical information. And so come out, say hello. Would love to see everyone out there.
That's it. This November 1st through 4th. We'll try to get a link in this description, and we'll certainly be talking about it at Daily Profit Cycle and have some links around so you can get your tickets.
Excellent. I'm supposed to remind you all to check us out at dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe to get all of our updates, our market commentary, our rants, our ravings, all of the things from not just Mr. Hodge and myself, but our talented group of editors and analysts over at Daily Profit Cycle. Mr. Hodge, anything else that you're really looking at the market or you're looking for in the market or that you want to get off your chest before we get out of here?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a light week here in the last week of August as we buy the pencils and the new sneakers to send the kids back to school. So I'm looking forward to catching up on a bit of work. I'd be remiss if I told you, if I didn't tell you not to overlook the uranium sector. The spot price is back at 57. I think Cameco is at now 12-year highs. So sneaky bullish in the uranium sector. With an ongoing situation in Niger, et cetera. So keep your eye on that. But what I really was going to say was about questions. So I think somebody was commenting about extending the podcasts to answer questions. Well, we do that from time to time. Just put a comment below the podcast and we'll certainly see it. And if it makes sense to address or if it's relevant to the topics we're discussing, by all means, we'll just incorporate it into one of these podcasts. And then if it's about a company or a topic we cover in the paid newsletters, then you can submit that through customer service, either by responding to any of those emails you get from Digest Publishing, from the individual letters, or from Daily Profit Cycle, or hit us up on Twitter or otherwise, and we incorporate those responses into the paid issues on a weekly or monthly basis. And then some of our publications do have like quarterly Q&A sessions where you can ask directly those questions and get them answered in a video format. So lots of ways to get your questions answered from us. And we love doing that, and submit them and we will respond to them in the appropriate format.
Absolutely. Love the feedback, all the feedback, the positive, the negative, the constructive, the insightful, the comical. We take it all around here. We thick skin, big boys and big girls over here at Daily Profit Cycle and Bizarro World. So keep it coming, y'all. I am Gerardo Del Real along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was the 232nd episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. Nick, send us off with some words of wisdom, sir.
Oh, have a great week out there. Like you said, Gerardo, be kind to everybody.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.